The training hall erupted in chaos the moment Instructor Xylara's palm connected with Cadet Danny Carter's face. The slap echoed through the massive dome like a gunshot, and every cadet in the room froze. Danny's head snapped to the side, but he didn't fall. He didn't even stumble. Xylara's eyes widened behind her protective visor. Her species, the Krell, were known across 7 star systems as the most physically dominant warriors in the Galactic Defense Initiative. She had just delivered a disciplinary strike that would have sent any other cadet species crumpling to the floor. The human simply turned his head back to face her, blood trickling from his split lip. Before anyone could process what happened, Xylara moved again. Her massive form lunged forward with the speed that made Krell legendary. Her fist drove toward Danny's midsection with enough force to crack battle armor. The impact sounded like thunder. Danny folded around the blow and dropped to one knee, gasping. The other human cadets in the room tensed, their hands moving instinctively toward weapons that weren't there. This was supposed to be unarmed combat training. Xylara had been pushing the humans hard for weeks, testing their limits, but this crossed a line everyone felt but nobody could name. Katie Rodriguez, standing in the front row of observers, felt her jaw clench. She had served with Danny for 3 months. He was tough, disciplined, and followed orders even when they seemed designed to break him. He had done nothing to deserve this. Xylara stood over Danny, her chest heaving with exertion that surprised her. She had hit him with everything she had, yet the human was already pushing himself back to his feet. His gray eyes met hers with something that made her scales prickle. Not hatred, not even anger, just a cold, calculating awareness. Commander Vex, the station's oversight officer, watched from the observation deck above. His 4 eyes narrowed as he leaned forward. Humans had only joined the Galactic Defense Initiative 8 months ago. Their planet, Earth, had been deemed strategically valuable, but its people were considered weak, small, fragile compared to the warrior races that dominated the military ranks. Vex had opposed their inclusion from the beginning. Now he watched as the human cadet straightened to his full height, wiping blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. Danny raised his fists in the standard combat stance. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for orders. Xylara bared her teeth in what might have been a smile. She had trained thousands of cadets from dozens of species. She knew defiance when she saw it. But there was something else in the human's eyes, something she had never seen before in a species so new to the galaxy. The other cadets backed away, forming a wider circle. Katie caught Danny's eye for just a second. She gave the smallest shake of her head, a silent plea. Danny's expression didn't change. His focus remained locked on the Krell instructor, who had just made a terrible mistake. Xylara struck first, her massive arms sweeping in a horizontal arc meant to decapitate. Danny ducked under it, the whoosh of displaced air ruffling his short brown hair. He didn't counter. He moved backward, light on his feet, circling. The Krell followed, each step making the reinforced floor vibrate. She was 7 feet tall and weighed 300 pounds of muscle and armored hide. Danny was 5'10" and barely broke 170. The math should have been simple. It wasn't. Xylara feinted left and drove her knee up toward Danny's ribs. He twisted, taking the impact on his hip instead of his core. Pain flared across his face, but he grabbed her leg with both hands. For a fraction of a second, Xylara felt something impossible. The human was trying to lift her. She laughed, a harsh barking sound, and drove her elbow down toward his skull. Danny released her leg and rolled away. When he came up, his breathing was controlled, measured. He was treating this like a problem to solve, not a fight to survive. Commander Vex's communicator chirped. He ignored it. Every eye on the observation deck was locked on the scene below. 3 other instructors had joined him, drawn by the commotion. One of them, a veteran Sardix warrior named Clev, whistled low through his breathing slits. "She's going to kill him," Clev said flatly. Vex said nothing. He had seen combat across 40 worlds. He knew what killing looked like. This wasn't it. Not yet. Xylara was testing the human, pushing him to see where he would break. But the human wasn't breaking. He was learning. Danny took another hit, this one catching his shoulder and spinning him halfway around. He used the momentum, converting it into distance. Blood now flowed freely from his nose and lip. His left eye was starting to swell. Katie had seen enough. She stepped forward, her hand raised. "Commander Vex, permission to intervene," she shouted up toward the observation deck. "Denied," Vex replied without looking at her. The human accepted the challenge when he raised his fists. Katie's hands balled into fists at her sides. The other human cadets shifted restlessly. Greg Murphy, a former Marine from New York, moved to stand beside Katie. His jaw was set in a hard line. Beside him, Lisa Chen cracked her knuckles unconsciously. The tension in the room changed quality. It was no longer just about Danny and Xylar. Every human in the training hall felt the weight of what was happening. One of their own was being used as an example. Xylara pressed her advantage, driving forward with a combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed any other cadet. Danny blocked what he could and absorbed what he couldn't. Each impact drove him backward. His defense was crumbling. The Krell instructor allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The human had heart, but heart wasn't enough against superior strength and training. Then Danny changed tactics. Instead of retreating, he stepped inside Xylara's reach during her next strike. Her fist sailed over his head. He was too close for her to hit effectively now, pressed against her armored torso. For a split second, she hesitated, uncertain how to respond to prey that willingly entered the predator's embrace. Danny's hand shot up, fingers rigid, and struck her throat just below her jaw where the scales were thinnest. It wasn't a powerful blow. It didn't need to be. Xylara's eyes went wide. She staggered backward, one hand going to her neck, a choked gasp escaping her lips. Danny didn't follow up. He stepped back, resuming his defensive stance, waiting. The training hall went silent. Even the distant hum of the station's environmental systems seemed to fade. Xylara straightened slowly, her breathing ragged. She stared at the human with something new in her eyes. Respect warred with anger. She had underestimated him. More than that, she had underestimated his species. Commander Vex leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Clev beside him let out a low laugh. The human struck a Krell in the throat and lived to tell about it, Clev said. "I've seen decorated soldiers refuse that opportunity." Danny's legs trembled. Adrenaline was the only thing keeping him upright. His ribs screamed with every breath, his vision blurred at the edges. But he kept his hands up and his eyes forward. Xylara studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. It was a small gesture, barely perceptible, but every species in the room recognized it. Acknowledgement. She turned and walked toward the exit without another word. The automatic doors hissed open and closed behind her. The moment she was gone, Danny's legs gave out. He hit the floor hard. Katie and Greg were at his side in seconds, supporting him, checking for serious injuries. His eyes found Katie's. "Did I pass?" he asked, his voice thick with pain and something that might have been humor. Katie didn't smile. "You're an idiot." "Yeah," Danny agreed. "But did I pass?" From the observation deck, Commander Vex activated his communicator. Medical team to Training Hall 7. One human cadet, multiple contusions and possible broken ribs. He paused, then added, and update the human species combat rating. We may have been mistaken about their capabilities. The medical bay on Station Arcturus Prime was designed to handle injuries from 100 different species. Dr. Helt, a Vornian physician with 6 manipulating tentacles, moved efficiently around Danny's bed, while scanners hummed and beeped. Katie stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching every movement. Greg and Lisa waited in the corridor outside, turned away only by the capacity limits. 3 cracked ribs, severe bruising across the torso and face, strained ligaments in both shoulders, Dr. Helt announced, his translator rendering his bubbling language into flat galactic standard. The human will recover. His species has remarkable regenerative properties for their size class. Danny lay on the biobed, stripped to the waist, covered in dermal regenerators that glowed soft blue against his bruised skin. He stared at the ceiling, his jaw tight. Katie could see he was replaying the fight in his mind, analyzing every mistake. You should be in recovery mode for 3 days minimum, Dr. Helt continued, adjusting one of the regenerators. I am documenting this incident as training negligence. Instructor Zylara exceeded acceptable force parameters. No, Danny said quietly. Doctor. Helt's eye stalk swiveled toward him. Cadet, I do not think you understand. This documentation could result in disciplinary action against your instructor. It would provide legal protection for your training cohort. I said no, Danny repeated, louder this time. She was testing me. I failed the test until I didn't. End of story. Katie pushed off from the wall. Danny, she could have killed you. She wanted to kill you. Maybe? Danny's eyes finally moved from the ceiling to meet hers. But she stopped. She acknowledged me. That's what matters. Before Katie could argue, the medical bay doors slid open. Commander Vex entered, his 4 eyes taking in the scene with military precision. Dr. Helt straightened immediately, 2 tentacles forming what passed for a salute among his people. Commander, I was just explaining to Cadet Carter that this incident requires formal documentation. Your medical report is sufficient, Doctor, Vex said. His gaze settled on Danny. Cadet Carter, you will remain here for the prescribed recovery period, after which you will report to my office. Yes, sir, Danny said. Vex turned to leave, then paused. Your performance today was noted. Not just by me. He didn't elaborate before walking out. Katie waited until the doors closed. What does that mean? Danny closed his eyes. It means things just got complicated. 40 levels above the medical bay, in the command section of Station Arcturus Prime, a very different conversation was taking place. The council chamber housed representatives from the 7 founding species of the Galactic Defense Initiative. Today, an emergency session had been called. Counselor Verche, a Krell whose scales bore the scars of 100 battles, stood at the central podium. A human showed our instructor a weakness and exploited it. This is exactly what we feared when Earth was granted provisional membership. They are too aggressive, too willing to escalate. He defended himself, countered Counselor Mira, one of the few Sardics who advocated for human inclusion. Instructor Zylara initiated physical violence beyond training protocols. The human showed restraint by not continuing his attack. Restraint? Brescia's laugh was like rocks grinding together. He struck a Krell warrior in the throat. That is a killing technique among my people. If he had struck harder, we would be discussing a funeral, not a training incident. Ambassador Chen stood in the human delegation area. She was older than most of the cadets, a career diplomat who had fought for Earth's place in the galactic community for 3 years. She had warned her superiors that integration would be difficult. She hadn't expected it to be this difficult, this fast. "Counselors," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "May I speak?" Vresh gestured dismissively. "The human delegation may address the council." Ambassador Chen walked to the speaking floor. Cadet Carter's actions today reflect the training all humans receive from childhood. We are taught to defend ourselves, to never quit, to find solutions when brute force fails. These are not flaws. These are survival traits from a species that fought its way to the top of a brutal evolutionary ladder. "Precisely our concern," Vresh interrupted. "Your people are primitives who solved every problem with violence. You had 17 major wars in the last century alone. And we survived them," Ambassador Chen said quietly. "We learned from them. We grew beyond them. Humanity asked to join the Galactic Defense Initiative because we believed in something larger than ourselves. We believed in protecting civilized space from the threats beyond the border. Are you telling me that belief was misplaced?" Counselor Mira stood, her crystalline skin refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. "The humans have been with us for 8 months. In that time, they have exceeded expectations in every academic and technical field. Their tactical thinking is innovative. Their pilots have outperformed species with centuries more experience. Today, one human cadet faced down a Krell instructor and survived. Perhaps instead of viewing this as a problem, we should see it as an asset." "An asset?" Vresh slammed his massive fist on his podium. "They are a liability. They refuse to know their place. They challenge authority. They take risks that endanger entire units. I move that we suspend human integration pending a full review." The chamber erupted in debate. Voices in a dozen languages overlapped, translators struggling to keep pace. Ambassador Chen stood in the center of it all, watching her dream of human-alien cooperation crumble around her. Then the alarm started. Every screen in the council chamber flashed red. The debate died instantly as emergency protocols activated. Station Commander Tarvik, a 4-armed Nexian, appeared on the central display, his face grim. "Council members, we have a situation. Long-range sensors detected a void collective strike force entering the Keras system. 17 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts. They're heading straight for Keras 4. Counselor Mira's crystalline form seemed to dim. Keras 4 has a population of 8 million. The colony has minimal defensive capability." "Evacuation?" someone asked. "Insufficient time," Tarvik replied. "The Void Fleet will reach orbital space in 4 hours. We have 2 defense frigates in the system and the training squadron from this station. That's all." Vresh stood slowly, his earlier anger replaced by cold calculation. "The training squadron is not ready for combat deployment. Most cadets have less than 6 months' experience." "They're what we have," Tarvik said flatly. "I need authorization to deploy immediately. Every minute we delay means more civilians die." The council voted in seconds. Authorization was unanimous. As the chamber emptied, Ambassador Chen felt her communicator vibrate, a message from the human cadet barracks. She read it and felt ice settle in her stomach. Every human cadet had volunteered for the deployment, all 47 of them, including the one currently in medical bay with 3 cracked ribs. Danny heard the alarms from his hospital bed. "Doctor," Helt rushed past, his tentacles moving in controlled chaos as he prepared for incoming casualties. Katie's communicator chirped. She read the message, and her face went pale. "They're deploying the training squadron," she said. "Void collective attack on Keras 4? It's happening now." Danny sat up, pain shooting through his torso. Help me up. Are you insane? You can barely breathe. Katie, there are 8 million people on that colony. I can breathe well enough to sit in a fighter cockpit. He swung his legs off the bed, gritting his teeth against the pain. Besides, Dr. Helt said I have remarkable regenerative properties. Let's test that theory. She stared at him for a long moment, then grabbed his uniform from the storage locker. You're definitely insane. Probably, Danny agreed, pulling on his shirt with trembling hands. But I didn't come all the way to space to hide in medical while people die. 30 minutes later, Danny stood in the launch bay with the other human cadets. The pain was a constant throb, but the regenerators Dr. Helt had applied were doing their job. He could move. He could fight. That was enough. Commander Vex walked down the line of assembled cadets. Humans, Krell, Sardics, Varnians, species from across known space, all wearing the same gray flight suits, all about to face their first real combat. He stopped in front of Danny. Cadet Carter. I was told you were in medical bay. I was, sir. I'm cleared for duty. It wasn't technically true, but Dr. Helt had been too busy to officially forbid it. Vex studied him for a moment, then moved on. When he reached the end of the line, he turned to face them all. The Void Collective does not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They exist to consume and destroy. Today you will face them in combat. Some of you will not return. That is the reality of war. He paused. But you are not fighting for yourselves. You are fighting for 8 million lives who cannot fight back. You are fighting to prove that the Galactic Defense Initiative means something. You are fighting because no one else can. He raised his fist in salute. Every cadet returned it. Launch in 5 minutes. May the stars guide you home. The pilots scattered to their craft. Danny climbed into the cockpit of his fighter, a sleek Talon-class interceptor designed for speed and precision. His hands moved through the pre-flight check from muscle memory. Beside him, Katie's fighter powered up, its engines glowing blue in the dim bay. Danny, her voice came through his helmet comm. If you pass out up there, I'm going to be really angry at you. Noted, he replied, strapping in. His ribs screamed in protest, but he forced the pain down. He had a job to do. The squadron launched in perfect formation, 42 fighters streaming out of Station Arcturus Prime like a swarm of angry hornets. Danny fell into wing position behind Katie, his fighter responding to every command despite the pain that made his hands shake. They accelerated toward the jump point, reality bending around them as they entered faster than light travel. The journey to Kara's system took 90 minutes. The silence in Danny's cockpit was absolute except for the steady rhythm of his breathing and the quiet hum of his fighter's systems. He used the time to meditate, to center himself, to prepare for what was coming. He had trained for combat. He had studied tactics and strategy, but training and reality were different things. He was about to learn just how different. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Keras system. Danny's sensors immediately lit up with contacts. The Void Collective fleet was exactly where long-range scans had predicted, a dark mass of warships moving toward the helpless colony below. The training squadron formed up, their tiny fighters dwarfed by the massive dreadnoughts ahead. Commander Vex's voice filled every helmet. All wings, this is Commander Vex. Our objective is to delay the Void Fleet until reinforcements arrive. We cannot defeat them, but we can slow them down. We can give those civilians time to shelter. We can show the Void Collective that every inch of space they take will cost them. Attack Formation Alpha. Engage at will. The squadron dove toward the enemy fleet, like sparrows attacking eagles. The first wave of defensive fire turned space into a light show. Energy beams crisscrossed the darkness, seeking the small, fast-moving targets that danced between them. Danny's fighter screamed through the barrage, his hands moving on instinct, rolling and diving in patterns that felt more like memory than training. The pain in his ribs faded to background noise. There was only the fight, only the mission, only survival. "Break left, Katie's voice shouted in his ear. Danny jerked his controls and a plasma bolt seared past where his cockpit had been a second before. He swung around, lining up a shot on one of the Void fighter craft that had emerged from the Dreadnought's launch bays. His targeting computer locked on. He fired. The Void fighter exploded in a brilliant flash. His first kill. He felt nothing about it. No time for feelings. Another Void fighter was already on his tail. "Got him," Greg's calm voice announced. The pursuing fighter vanished from Danny's sensors. "Watch your six, people. They're swarming." The training squadron was outnumbered 5-1. The Void fighters were older models, less advanced than the Galactic Defense Initiative craft, but numbers had a quality all their own. Danny watched 2 Sardix fighters go down, their pilots ejecting in escape pods that would hopefully be recovered when this was over, if anyone survived to recover them. "Delta Wing, concentrate fire on the lead Dreadnought's engine cluster," Commander Vex ordered. "We need to slow them down." Danny joined the attack run, his fighter one of 12 that screamed toward the massive warship. Point defense cannons tracked them, filling space with explosive rounds. Lisa Chen's fighter took a direct hit. Her cockpit section survived, but her engines were gone, sending her tumbling into space. Danny didn't have time to see if she made it to safety. He focused on the target, on the glowing engine ports that pulsed with captured stellar energy. His missile lock chimed. He fired both heavy torpedoes, then pulled up hard, his vision graying at the edges from the G-forces. Behind him, explosions bloomed across the Dreadnought's stern. It wasn't enough to destroy the ship, but it was enough to slow it. Smoke and debris streamed from the damaged engines. Good hit, Vex confirmed. "Reform and prepare for another pass." Danny's tactical display showed the grim reality. They had destroyed 11 Void fighters and damaged 2 of the Dreadnoughts, but they had lost 9 fighters with 4 more critically damaged. The Void fleet was still advancing. The colony below was still defenseless. They were losing. Then Katie's voice cut through the calm chatter, sharp and urgent. "New contacts bearing 270, multiple signatures. Big ones." Danny's heart sank. More Void ships. It was over. But when he checked his sensors, the signatures weren't Void. They were Galactic Defense Initiative, a full battle group, 8 warships led by a massive carrier, dropping out of faster-than-light travel right in the middle of the combat zone. "Training Squadron, this is Admiral Korvax of the 3rd Fleet. We'll take it from here. Break off and return to defensive formation." The relief that flooded through Danny was so intense it made him dizzy. Or maybe that was the 3 cracked ribs and the trauma of combat. Either way, he pulled his battered fighter away from the Void fleet and watched as the real military arrived to finish the job. The battle lasted another 30 minutes. The Void Collective Fleet, faced with an actual military force instead of training cadets, attempted to retreat. They didn't make it. The 3rd Fleet destroyed 14 of the 17 warships. The 3 that escaped jumped to faster-than-light speeds, damaged and leaking atmosphere. Keras 4 was safe. 8 million civilians would live to see another day. Danny guided his fighter back to the carrier, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. His ribs felt like they were on fire. His vision kept blurring. He managed to land more or less smoothly, the fighter touching down on the carrier deck, with only a minor bounce that made him gasp in pain. Medical teams were waiting. "Doctor, Helt was there too, having transferred to the carrier. The Vornian physician's eye stalks focused on Danny as he climbed out of the cockpit, and Danny swore he saw something like exasperation in the alien's expression. "Cadet Carter, I specifically did not clear you for combat duty." "Yeah?" Danny said. Then his legs gave out. Katie caught him before he hit the deck. "Sorry about that." The medical team loaded him onto a stretcher. As they carried him toward the medical bay, he saw Commander Vex standing on the observation deck, watching. The four-eyed alien nodded once. Danny managed to return the gesture before exhaustion dragged him under. 3 days later, Danny stood at attention in Commander Vex's office. His ribs were healed, the regenerators having done their work during his medically enforced rest. Beside him stood Katie, Greg, and Lisa, who had been recovered from her escape pod with nothing worse than a concussion. Vex studied them from behind his desk. "The council met yesterday. They reviewed the combat footage from Karas 4. They also reviewed footage from your training hall incident, Cadet Carter." Danny kept his eyes forward, his expression neutral. "The council has decided to continue human integration into the Galactic Defense Initiative without restrictions. Furthermore, Instructor Zylara has requested permission to train exclusively with human cadets. She believes your species has tactical approaches worth studying." Danny blinked. That was the last thing he expected. "You are all hereby promoted to full active duty status," Vex continued. "Your training period is over. You are now soldiers of the Galactic Defense Initiative." He stood and offered them the formal salute. "Congratulations, you've earned it." As they left the office, Katie elbowed Danny gently in the ribs. He winced. "Still hurts?" "A little," he admitted. "Good. Maybe next time you'll think before you pick a fight with a 7-foot alien warrior." Danny grinned. "Where's the fun in that?" They walked down the corridor together, 4 humans among the stars, ready for whatever came next.